in standard format. So, well, standard format for me. You're going to find that as you approach different teachers and instructors, they're always going to do their palette just a little bit differently. And there's no really right or wrong. It's just getting to know what is right for you. So I would encourage you to kind of start the way that I do my things. And the reason why I always put them in the standard format for me is so that, like a piano, I know where my keys are. And my keys are my color palette here. So let me kind of lay it out for you. Also in the video color wheel and theory painting, I've got a free download for this layout in a 12x16 and an 8x10, so you can actually print it out, put it under your palette, and paint from there. So anyway, here it is. You've got your black, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, sap green, alizarin crimson, burnt umber, burnt sienna, cadmium orange, yellow ochre, and cadmium medium yellow. And also on my palette are 4 other colors, and those 4 other colors I used in the rooster painting, and that's this one right here. Oh, okay. My color palette is something that I've developed over the last 20 years, and it is a combination of what's referred to as impressionistic colors, 20th century colors, and classic colors. So when we look at history, right? Oh, sorry, a little history lesson here. Okay, so when we look at the history of oil painting, there has been an evolution in the colors and how they have progressed in the level of, intensity that they have. So the Renaissance era and before was more of a kind of mineral, very earthy look and feel, right? It was very, these 2 colors, burnt umber, burnt sienna, yellow ochre. Very, I would dare say, dull, right? So it's very much those. And then the Impressionistic era came, which through the Industrial Revolution, more pigment became available that was actually created, almost man-made. And that's where we got more into like the ultramarine blues, the cobalt blues, let's see what else we got here, the alizarin crimson, the cadmium oranges, right? They're starting to get more intense in color. And then came the 20th century, and that's where we really got to rock out the colors. That's where we're getting, these beautiful perylene red. I mean, seriously, I don't know how they came up with the name perylene. I probably need to look that up, but perylene red, look how stinking pretty this is. And then that naphthol red, wow. I mean, with those, you can do some fantastic colors. And so with all this color palette, you have, I don't know how many variations of color that you can create, but it's being able to do these daily paintings that you're going to be able to play with this entire palette and get to know what colors that you like to play with, right? So before we get that's kind of what we're doing today. We are playing, okay? All right, let's get some paint on this thing. So here's what I'm going to do. I always kind of break up my bristles by brushing into the Gamsol, and I do move in one direction. So like you can see me slowly move, I'll slowly move, and then I pick it up and I turn it around. And over time, this kind of happens pretty fast. And I think it's a lot like a drummer with his drumsticks. It's just going to start flipping it around anyway. So anyway, I'm going to break up my bristles, and I've got an old rag here. Just get a towel and rip it up a lot of times, and you've got rags for like 10 years. Okay, I always use burnt sienna on my initial toning of my canvas. Why do I do this? The number one reason is it dries super fast. This is one of those this is one of those paints that dries just super fast. So I can come over here, and literally all I'm doing is slapping it on here. Again, we're breaking down that barrier of being afraid to put paint on here, okay? It's also putting an initial layer of paint on here so that if I don't paint the overall thing, the overall panel, there's still something warm and pretty coming through. It's not the stark white. So I've got my initial paint on there, and it's just throwing paint on there. Now I am going to wipe it off just a little bit. I've got a paper towel. I'm going to wipe it down. And the reason why I'm wiping it down is because I want to remove some of the paint so that, again, it dries a little bit faster. Okay, now that I've got my canvas all toned, the next thing that I'm going to do is kind of start drawing out my apple. Now, I could spend hours and hours painting an apple, right? And so could you, because, you know, once you get into the paint zone, your brain shifts to where it doesn't understand time. It doesn't follow the concepts of time. So I actually put on an app, and you could probably use your Alexa or Google or whatever, but I have an app and it's called Focus Keeper. So what I do is I tell it 15 minutes, right? Okay, right there. So I'm going to be using 15 minutes to paint my apple. I'm just going to get the paint on there, I'm going to move quickly, and then I am ready to paint my real painting for that day. Okay, so I want you to do the same. So go ahead and pause this, set up your palette, get a panel or some Arches oil paper, and let's paint this apple.